Nobody's ever asked me about my creative process, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I think it's important. If not for you, dear viewer, then for myself, to unearth something which, for the entire time that I've been a creator, I've kept low key. My method. Of course, how does someone like me even define a method? Ever since the beginning of my musical journey, I've maintained cohesion pretty much by the skin of my teeth, trying to do what feels true while also trying to make something better than what came before, either by seeking more clarity in my frequency spectrum or more clarity in my intentions. At the same time, I find myself moving away from method. And yet, as a friend once said, every song sounds different, but each one has that Kala vibe that only you could create. This tells me that there is a thing that I do that, different as one song is from another, discloses it as my work. How about a tiny bit of history? As far as I can remember, I've always written songs. There is a tape tucked away in a chest somewhere with recordings of an 8-year-old me, playing toy guitars and banging on plastic makeshift drums. You'll never listen to it. I don't. It's not fit for human consumption, but it preambles this kind of four-dimensional collage that's been reverberating around me my whole life. The search for texture, the hunt for meaning, the crusade for honesty. I grew more earnest for music composition by about high school. Some friends coerced me into buying a bass guitar so that we could start a band. I had never heard bass before. Literally, to me at that time, music was this singular thing that had no discrete elements to it. But I quickly picked up on lines by Pink Floyd, Pantera, Primus, Fish, other bands with names that started with P, and I discovered instrumentation, chords, structure. I learned what a chorus and a verse were. A chorus and a verse. I take them for granted now, ignore them as tools half the time, but back then they were the lifeline out of sheer mess-making. When the band broke up, I kept writing music, and over the next 6 years or so, I worked on songs that just about nobody ever heard. Sometimes it'd be a love song for a girl I was dating. I'd share that with her, but by and large, a lot of my material from those times has only ever hit one set of eardrums. Mine.
Naked in the field, naked in the field, naked in the field.
It wasn't until I shared an album with someone that this changed. I met him in my writing class. His name was Greg. He wanted to play drums for me, so I started to take music seriously, I guess.
Implication is the way we move. Savor every second that we sit so smooth. Color of the body will slip and slide. Naked in the field is the way we hide.
And by that I mean as an art that I share with others. We wrote brand new songs, joined by another guy from our writing class, Nick, mostly pops, ballads, trains of thought. We played shows, campgrounds, and bars. We once played a song while a drunk woman rode on a bronze pig. True story. We had fun. These are memories you don't get from staying hidden in a room. But those good times, they don't last. And after several name changes and significant song rewrites and reimaginings, and never quite gaining traction in the local music scene, we threw in the towel and said our goodbyes. I went back to my bedroom. But I'd got the bug. I wasn't ready to return to that world of solitude. I wanted to play shows, make people's bodies bounce, write songs that made them smile. I wanted to be successful. Long story short, I wrote and released 3 more albums and an EP, printed physical CDs, cassette tapes. I went from open mic to open mic trying to sell them. I moved from Maine to California, played shows with a band called Not the Ox. We recorded an EP in Long Beach, several singles too. But my enthusiasm was doing a backslide. I found myself less and less interested in being heard and being noticed and success. I yearned for a writing and recording that had no purpose other than to do it. And every day that passed made that more obvious. When I started making music for other people, I stopped making music for myself. And then I stopped making music entirely. Lately, it's a struggle to concede my work to the gaze of others. Not because I think that what I make is bad, far from it, but it doesn't belong to others. It doesn't exist for them. If I share work, it stops being for me, and for me is why I create in the first place. Maybe that's selfish, but I'm alright with being a little bit selfish about this. My art is an unearthing. It's a self-discovery that's been baked into my identity at its very roots. A desire to grasp at the level of intuition the facts of my being, and art allows me to do that. I can't even tell you the number of times I've gone back to read or listen to a piece of work I created years ago, only to discover something about myself that at the point of creation went ignored. Okay, so I'm failing at describing my method. I promise I'll get back on track in a moment. My original goal when shooting this footage was to capture the process by which I quickly made a song. And while I succeeded in some ways, for example, what you're seeing here is 6 hours from blank slate to finished master, in other ways, I believe I failed. Because nothing about this video explicates how I work. So much to the point that during editing, I found myself completely at a loss for words. These ideas, compulsions, really just appear out of the air, fully formed. How can I explain what I am doing? Why I'm choosing these instruments or those notes? Is there even a logic behind any of it? Is there even a method?
Shiver dispositions up your nervous spine, post regurgitation on the mastermind.
I am convinced that I don't know what I'm doing at any given moment. And if I were to try to take some kind of accountability for it, the results wouldn't be as good as they are. Everything is on accident. It has to be this way, because if it's not on accident, then I'll be in my own way the whole time. It gets said so often, I won't dote on it, but perfectionism is a plague, not a darling. I've got to make something sloppy, then clean it up. Give myself a block of stone to carve away. Worry less about polishing a turd, because if I make something and I don't like it, I give up on it. It's happened before and it will happen again. But the longer I work, the more I complete, the less I find things to give up on, and the more I find things that stun me. This is to say that the fear of starting is greater than simply starting. So I hit a key, another key, as many as I can, and try to find some kind of correct order. I want to emphasize here that correct only has meaning to me now. in this moment that you're watching when I'm at work. Because I'm tapping into something divinely present, an impulse that strives for its own manifestation, that exists in tandem with me, not due to me. We are two things which act and move separately towards similar ends. I am not the music creator. I am the assistant, the instrument through which the music creates itself, through which the words type themselves. So I should say that I see method not as a set pattern of actions, but as a habit of making things with a determined purpose in mind. Method, as in being methodical. Not everything has to have the same method, but everything becomes methodical through attribution of being done. And being done with specific goals of precision, aesthetic, and my own personal satisfaction.
Okay, cool. I like that.
My method is acting methodically, making things clear through wiping away layers of mud that I've thrown at a canvas. I start with something that is imperfect, and I make changes to it. Over and over again until it moves closer to truth. And let's be clear, I don't know how honest I am as a person. Sometimes I say things that later feel like lies, and while I have many hypotheses about this, the important fact is that I'm focusing on what is true for me in that very moment, the moment that I'm creating. I think maybe I'm too frustrated by the existence of authority figures that I feel the need to refuse to be an authority on anything, so I don't want to tell you how to work. But what I do know is that the way I do things, this breakneck rush to decide and then slowing down to clarify my decision, works well for getting work done. I can sit down, do, and refuse to get wrapped up into obsession. This isn't just a matter of creating quickly, because rushing through decision making is also a really good way to make mistakes. This is a clearing of obstacles, ending second guessing, and smoothing a path toward completion in a way that's both fulfilling and intentional.
Mother-bodied malice of your inner ear. Listen all you want, but you will never hear. Triumph is a palliative to amplified. Naked in a field is the way we ride.
At the end of the day, those are the features of work that seem, at least to me, the most compelling. Work that evokes the rawest potential of the creator's vision while also exhibiting their skill in polishing and refining. You have to trust yourself to do something true. Then trust yourself to make it good. The order of operations does matter here. Every note you play is a chance to obscure or a chance to reveal. And each time you choose, knowing which direction you headed can make the decision for where to go next. I have friends who get caught up perfecting each beat and each note. They sit for hours tracking the same guitar line in a single bar of music until it's exactly, precisely the way they want it to sound. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, with doing it this way, especially if the music you want to make is meticulous. But, well, I think that's too time-consuming, and personally, I'm scared to death that I'm extracting the soul from the work in piecemeal, throwing it away. I want a mistake. I want to sit at the edge of chaos, trying to pinpoint identifiable meaning from the mess like shapes in clouds. And if you've made it this far, you've seen about 15 synchronicities occur, perfectly timed moments where my dialogue matched the edited video. This, too, is a form of music. None of this has been planned, but each one of them occurs beautiful, possible, and rich with intent. And if I'd cut them, beveled their edges, and smoothed off the rough bits, I just don't think I would like the results quite as much. But instead, because of my work and my method, we get magic.
Mark the earth with a fox fur tuft stolen from a live fox that's soon let go.
I hope, maybe, I've done enough to explain how I work. Especially when you're just starting out. Just starting can be so hard to do. Getting over that hurdle makes the difference between being genuinely satisfied with your creative work and being exhausted at the thought of it. It's easy to get precious about stuff and to obsess over the question of, is this take I recorded good enough? When really you should be asking yourself, is this take I recorded true enough? Only you can know the answer to that, but if you keep moving forward and get your hands dirty, digging it all out, I know you can do it. I know you can.